Welcome to Pushing to the Front by Orison Swett Marden, one of the most influential classics in the history of self-help and success literature. In these chapters, Marden shares timeless wisdom on ambition, persistence, leadership, and achievement. His words inspire us to overcome hesitation, strengthen our will, and move boldly toward our highest potential. Whether you're seeking personal growth, practical success strategies, or simply daily motivation, this series will encourage and guide you on your journey forward.
Chapter 10. What career? Brutes find out where their talents lie. A bear will not attempt to fly. A foundered horse will oft debate before he tries a 5-barred gate. A dog by instinct turns aside, who sees the ditch too deep and wide. But man we find the only creature who, led by folly, combats nature, who, when she loudly cries, "Forbear!" with obstinacy fixes there, and where his genius least inclines, absurdly bends his whole designs. Swift. The crowning fortune of a man is to be born to some pursuit which finds him in employment and happiness, whether it be to make baskets or broadswords, or canals, or statues, or songs. Emerson. Whatever you are by nature, keep to it. Never desert your line of talent. Be what nature intended you for, and you will succeed. Be anything else, and you will be 10,000 times worse than nothing. Sydney Smith. Every man has got a fort, said Artemus Ward. It's some men's fort to do one thing, and some other men's fort to do another, while there is numerous shiftless critters going round loose whose fort is not to do nothing. Twice I've endeavoured to do things which they wasn't my fort. The first time was when I undertook to lick old Dash's cuss, who cut a hole in my tent and crawled through. Says I, "My gentle sir, go out, or I shall fall unto you pretty heavy." Says he, "Wade in, old wax figures." Whereupon I went for him, but he caught me powerful on the head and knocked me through the tent into the cow pasture. He pursued the attack and flung me into a mud puddle. As I arose and wrung out my drenched garments, I concluded fiddin' wasn't my fort. Now, rise the curtain upon scene second. It is rarely seldom that I seek consolation in the flowing bowl, but in a certain town in Indiana, in the fall of 18, my origin grinder got sick with the fever and died. I never felt so ashamed in my life, and I thought I'd hissed in a few swallows of something strengthening. Consequence was, I hissed so much I didn't exactly know whereabouts I was. I turned my living wild beasts of prey loose into the streets, and split all my waxworks. I then bet I could play hoss, so I hitched myself to a canal boat, there being 2 other hosses behind and another ahead of me. But the hosses being unused on such an arrangement, begun to kick and squeal and rear up. Consequence was, I was kicked violently in the stomach and the back, and presently I found myself in the canal with the other horses kicking and yelling like a tribe of Cuscaroos savages. I was rescued, and as I was being carried to the tavern on a hemlock board, I said in a feeble voice, "Boys, playing hoss isn't my fort." Moral. Never don't do nothing which isn't your fort, for if you do, you'll find yourself splashing round in the canal, figuratively speaking. The following advertisement, which appeared day after day in a Western paper, did not bring a single reply. Wanted. Situation by a practical printer, who is competent to take charge of any department in a printing and publishing house. Would accept a professorship in any of the academies. Has no objection to teach ornamental painting and penmanship, geometry, trigonometry, and many other sciences, has had some experience as a lay preacher, would have no objection to form a small class of young ladies and gentlemen to instruct them in the higher branches. To a dentist or chiropodist he would be invaluable, or he would cheerfully accept a position as bass or tenor singer in a choir. At length there appeared this addition to the notice: P.S. Will accept an offer to saw and split wood at less than the usual rates. This secured a situation at once, and the advertisement was seen no more. Your talent is your call. Your legitimate destiny speaks in your character. If you have found your place, your occupation has the consent of every faculty of your being. If possible, choose that occupation which focuses the largest amount of your experience and tastes. You will then not only have a congenial vocation, but also will utilize largely your skill and business knowledge, which is your true capital. Follow your bent. You cannot long fight successfully against your aspirations. Parents, friends, or misfortune may stifle and suppress the longings of the heart by compelling you to perform unwelcome tasks. But, like a volcano, the inner fire will burst the crusts which confine it, and will pour forth its pent-up genius in eloquence, in song, in art, or in some favorite industry. Beware of a talent which you cannot hope to practice in perfection. Nature hates all botched and half-finished work, and will pronounce her curse upon it. Better be the Napoleon of bootblacks, or the Alexander of chimney-sweeps, let us say with Matthew Arnold, than a shallow-brained attorney who, like necessity, knows no law. Half the world seems to have found uncongenial occupation, as though the human race had been shaken up together and exchanged places in the operation. A servant girl is trying to teach, and a natural teacher is tending store. Good farmers are murdering the law, while Choates and Websters are running down farms, each tortured by the consciousness of unfulfilled destiny. Boys are pining in factories, who should be wrestling with Greek and Latin, and hundreds are chafing beneath unnatural loads in college, who should be on the farm or before the mast. Artists are spreading daubs on canvas, who should be whitewashing board fences. Behind counters stand clerks who hate the yardstick and neglect their work to dream of other occupations. A good shoemaker writes a few verses for the village paper. His friends call him a poet, and the last, with which he is familiar, is abandoned for the pen, which he uses awkwardly. Other shoemakers are cobbling in Congress, while statesmen are pounding shoe lasts. Laymen are murdering sermons, while Beechers and Whitefields are failing as merchants, and people are wondering what can be the cause of empty pews. A boy who is always making something with tools is railroaded through the university and started on the road to inferiority in one of the 3 honorable professions. Real surgeons are handling the meat saw and cleaver, while butchers are amputating human limbs. How fortunate that there's a divinity that shapes our ends, rough hew them how we will. He that hath a trade, says Franklin, hath an estate, and he that hath a calling hath a place of profit and honor. A ploughman on his legs is higher than a gentleman on his knees. A man's business does more to make him than anything else. It hardens his muscles, strengthens his body, quickens his blood, sharpens his mind, corrects his judgment, wakes up his inventive genius, puts his wits to work, starts him on the race of life, arouses his ambition, makes him feel that he is a man and must fill a man's shoes, do a man's work, bear a man's part in life, and show himself a man in that part. No man feels himself a man who is not doing a man's business. A man without employment is not a man. He does not prove by his works that he is a man. 150 pounds of bone and muscle do not make a man. A good cranium full of brains is not a man. The bone and muscle and brain must know how to do a man's work, think a man's thoughts, mark out a man's path, and bear a man's weight of character and duty before they constitute a man. Go-at-itiveness is the first requisite for success. Stick-to-itiveness is the second. Under ordinary circumstances, and with practical common sense to guide him, one who has these requisites will not fail. Don't wait for a higher position or a larger salary. Enlarge the position you already occupy. Put originality of method into it. Fill it as if it never was filled before. Be more prompt, more energetic, more thorough, more polite than your predecessor or fellow workmen. Study your business, devise new modes of operation. Be able to give your employer points. The art lies not in giving satisfaction merely, not in simply filling your place, but in doing better than was expected, in surprising your employer, and the reward will be a better place and a larger salary. When out of work, take the first respectable job that offers, heeding not the disproportion between your faculties and your task. If you put your manhood into your labor, you will soon be given something better to do. This question of a right aim in life has become exceedingly perplexing in our complicated age. It is not a difficult problem to solve when one is the son of a Zulu or the daughter of a Bedouin. The condition of the savage hardly admits of but one choice, but as one rises higher in the scale of civilization and creeps nearer to the great centers of activity, the difficulty of a correct decision increases with its importance. In proportion as one is hard pressed in competition, is it of sternest necessity for him to choose the right aim, so as to be able to throw the whole of his energy and enthusiasm into the struggle for success. The dissipation of strength or hope is fatal to prosperity, even in the most attractive field. Gladstone says there is a limit to the work that can be got out of a human body or a human brain, and he is a wise man who wastes no energy on pursuits for which he is not fitted. Blessed is he who has found his work, says Carlyle. Let him ask no other blessedness. He has a work, a life purpose. He has found it, and will follow it. In choosing an occupation, do not ask yourself how you can make the most money or gain the most notoriety, but choose that work which will call out all your powers and develop your manhood into the greatest strength and symmetry. Not money, not notoriety, not fame even, but power is what you want. Manhood is greater than wealth, grander than fame. Character is greater than any career. Each faculty must be educated, and any deficiency in its training will appear in whatever you do. The hand must be educated to be graceful, steady, and strong. The eye must be educated to be alert, discriminating, and microscopic. The heart must be educated to be tender, sympathetic, and true. The memory must be drilled for years in accuracy, retention, and comprehensiveness. The world does not demand that you be a lawyer, minister, doctor, farmer, scientist, or merchant. It does not dictate what you shall do, but it does require that you be a master in whatever you undertake. If you are a master in your line, the world will applaud you, and all doors will fly open to you. But it condemns all botches, abortions, and failures. Whoever is well educated to discharge the duty of a man, says Rousseau, cannot be badly prepared to fill any of those offices that have relation to him. It matters little to me whether my pupils be designed for the army, the pulpit, or the bar. Nature has designed us to the offices of human life antecedent to our destination concerning society. To live is the profession I would teach him. When I have done with him, it is true he will be neither a soldier, a lawyer, nor a divine. Let him first be a man. Fortune may remove him from one rank to another as she pleases. He will be always found in his place. In the great race of life, common sense has the right of way. Wealth, a diploma, a pedigree, talent, genius, without tact and common sense, cut but a small figure. The incapables and the impracticables, though loaded with diplomas and degrees, are left behind. Not what do you know, or who are you, but what are you? What can you do? Is the interrogation of the century. George Herbert has well said, "What we are is much more to us than what we do." An aim that carries in it the least element of doubt as to its justice or honor or right should be abandoned at once. The art of dishing up the wrong so as to make it look and taste like the right has never been more extensively cultivated than in our day. It is a curious fact that reason will, on pressure, overcome a man's instinct of right. An eminent scientist has said that a man could soon reason himself out of the instinct of decency, if he would only take pains and work hard enough. So, when a doubtful but attractive future is placed before one, there is a great temptation to juggle with the wrong until it seems the right. Yet any aim that is immoral carries in itself the germ of certain failure, in the real sense of the word, failure that is physical and spiritual. There is no doubt that every person has a special adaptation for his own peculiar part in life. A very few geniuses, we call them, have this marked in an unusual degree, and very early in life. Madame de Staël was engrossed in political philosophy at an age when other girls are dressing dolls. Mozart, when but 4 years old, played the clavichord and composed minuets and other pieces still extant. The little charmers, with solemn air and earnest gestures, would preach often from a stool in the nursery. Goethe wrote tragedies at 12, and Grotius published an able philosophical work before he was 15. Pope lisped in numbers. Chatterton wrote good poems at 11, and Cowley published a volume of poetry in his 16th year. Thomas Lawrence and Benjamin West drew likenesses almost as soon as they could walk. Liszt played in public at 12. Canova made models in clay while a mere child. Bacon exposed the defects in Aristotle's philosophy when but 16. Napoleon was at the head of armies when throwing snowballs at Brienne. All these showed their bent while young, and followed it in active life. But precocity is not common, and, except in rare cases, we must discover the bias in our natures, and not wait for the proclivity to make itself manifest. When found, it is worth more to us than a vein of gold. "I do not forbid you to preach," said a bishop to a young clergyman, "but nature does." Lowell said, "It is the vain endeavor to make ourselves what we are not that has strewn history with so many broken purposes and lives left in the rough." You have not found your place until all your faculties are roused, and your whole nature consents and approves of the work you are doing, not until you are so enthusiastic in it that you take it to bed with you. You may be forced to drudge at uncongenial toil for a time, but emancipate yourself as soon as possible. Carry, the consecrated cobbler, before he went as a missionary, said, "My business is to preach the gospel. I cobble shoes to pay expenses." If your vocation be only a humble one, elevate it with more manhood than others put into it. Put into it brains and heart and energy and economy. Broaden it by originality of methods, extend it by enterprise and industry. Study it as you would a profession. Learn everything that is to be known about it. Concentrate your faculties upon it, for the greatest achievements are reserved for the man of single aim, in whom no rival powers divide the empire of the soul. Better adorn your own than seek another's place. Go to the bottom of your business if you would climb to the top. Nothing is small which concerns your business. Master every detail. This was the secret of A.T. Stewart's and of John Jacob Astor's great success. They knew everything about their business. As love is the only excuse for marriage, and the only thing which will carry one safely through the troubles and vexations of married life, so love for an occupation is the only thing which will carry one safely and surely through the troubles which overwhelm 95 out of every 100 who choose the life of a merchant, and very many in every other career. A famous Englishman said to his nephew, "Don't choose medicine, for we have never had a murderer in our family, and the chances are that in your ignorance you may kill a patient. As to the law, no prudent man is willing to risk his life or his fortune to a young lawyer who has not only no experience, but is generally too conceited to know the risks he incurs for his client, who alone is the loser. Therefore, as the mistakes of a clergyman in doctrine or advice to his parishioners cannot be clearly determined in this world, I advise you by all means to enter the church." I felt as though I was in the world to do something, and thought I must, said Whittier, thus giving the secret of his great power. It is the man who must enter law, literature, medicine, the ministry, or any other of the overstocked professions who will succeed. His certain call, that is his love for it, and his fidelity to it, are the imperious factors of his career. If a man enters a profession simply because his grandfather made a great name of it, or his mother wants him to, with no love or adaptability for it, it were far better for him to be a motorman on an electric car at $1.75 a day. In the humbler work, his intelligence may make him a leader. In the other career, he might do as much harm as a boulder rolled from its place upon a railroad track, a menace to the next express. Only a few years ago, marriage was the only sphere open to girls, and the single woman had to face the disapproval of her friends. Lessing said, "The woman who thinks is like a man who puts on rouge. Ridiculous." Not many years have elapsed since the ambitious woman who ventured to study or write would keep a bit of embroidery at hand to throw over her book or manuscript when callers entered. Dr. Gregory said to his daughters, "If you happen to have any learning, keep it a profound secret from the men, who generally look with a jealous and malignant eye on a woman of great parts and a cultivated understanding." Women who wrote books in those days would deny the charge as though a public disgrace. All this has changed, and what a change it is! As Francis Willard said, the greatest discovery of the century is the discovery of woman. We have emancipated her, and are opening countless opportunities for our girls outside of marriage. Formerly, only a boy could choose a career. Now his sister can do the same. This freedom is one of the greatest glories of the 20th century. But with freedom comes responsibility, and under these changed conditions, every girl should have a definite aim. Dr. Hall says that the world has urgent need of girls who are mother's right hand, girls who can cuddle the little ones next best to mama, and smooth out the tangles in the domestic skein when things get twisted. Girls whom father takes comfort in for something better than beauty, and the big brothers are proud of for something that outranks the ability to dance or shine in society. Next, we want girls of sense, girls who have a standard of their own, regardless of conventionalities, and are independent enough to live up to it. Girls who simply won't wear a trailing dress on the street to gather up microbes and all sorts of defilement. Girls who don't wear a high hat to the theatre, or lacerate their feet and endanger their health with high heels and corsets. Girls who will wear what is pretty and becoming and snap their fingers at the dictates of fashion when fashion is horrid and silly. And we want good girls, girls who are sweet, right straight out from the heart to the lips, innocent and pure and simple girls, with less knowledge of sin and duplicity and evil doing at 20 than the pert little schoolgirl of 10 has all too often. And we want careful girls and prudent girls who think enough of the generous father who toils to maintain them in comfort, and of the gentle mother who denies herself much that they may have so many pretty things, to count the cost and draw the line between the essentials and non-essentials. Girls who strive to save and not to spend. Girls who are unselfish and eager to be a joy and a comfort in the home, rather than an expense and a useless burden. We want girls with hearts, girls who are full of tenderness and sympathy, with tears that flow for other people's ills, and smiles that light outward their own beautiful thoughts. We have lots of clever girls, and brilliant girls, and witty girls. Give us a consignment of jolly girls, warm-hearted and impulsive girls, kind and entertaining to their own folks, and with little desire to shine in the garish world. With a few such girls scattered around, life would freshen up for all of us, as the weather does under the spell of summer showers. They talk about a woman's sphere as though it had a limit. There's not a place in earth or heaven, there's not a task to mankind given, there's not a blessing or a woe, there's not a whisper, yes or no, there's not a life or death or birth that has the feather's weight of worth without a woman in it. Do that which is assigned you, says Emerson, and you cannot hope too much or dare too much. There is at this moment for you an utterance brave and grand as that of the colossal chisel of Phidias, or trowel of the Egyptians, or the pen of Moses or Dante, but different from all these. The best way for a young man to begin, who is without friends or influence, said Russell Sage, is first by getting a position, second, keeping his mouth shut, third, observing, fourth, being faithful, fifth, making his employer think he would be lost in a fog without him, and sixth, being polite. Close application, integrity, attention to details, discreet advertising, are given as the 4 steps to success by John Wanamaker, whose motto is, "Do the next thing." Whatever you do in life, be greater than your calling. Most people look upon an occupation or calling as a mere expedient for earning a living. What a mean, narrow view to take of what was intended for the great school of life, the great man developer, the character builder, that which should broaden, deepen, heighten, and round out into symmetry, harmony, and beauty all the God-given faculties within us. How we shrink from the task, and evade the lessons which were intended for the unfolding of life's great possibilities into usefulness and power, as the sun unfolds into beauty and fragrances the petals of the flower. I am glad to think I am not bound to make the world go round, but only to discover and to do, with cheerful heart, the work that God appoints. Jean Ingelow. What shall I do to be forever known? Thy duty ever. This did full many who yet sleep all unknown. Oh, never, never! Think'st thou perchance that they remain unknown, whom thou knowest not? By angel trumps in heaven their praise is blown, divine their lot. End of chapter 10. What career?
If you enjoy timeless wisdom like this, consider subscribing for more audiobooks just like it.
Chapter 11. Choosing a vocation. Be what nature intended you for, and you will succeed. Be anything else, and you will be 10,000 times worse than nothing. Sydney Smith. Many a man pays for his success with a slice of his constitution. No man struggles perpetually and victoriously against his own character, and one of the first principles of success in life is so to regulate our career as rather to turn our physical constitution and natural inclinations to good account than to endeavour to counteract the one or oppose the other. Bulwer. He that hath a trade hath an estate. Franklin. Nature fits all her children with something to do. Lowell. As occupations and professions have a powerful influence upon the length of human life, the youth should first ascertain whether the vocation he thinks of choosing is a healthy one. Statesmen, judges, and clergymen are noted for their longevity. They are not swept into the great business vortex, where the friction and raspings of sharp competition whittle life away at a fearful rate. Astronomers who contemplate vast systems moving through enormous distances are exceptionally long-lived, as Herschel and Humboldt. Philosophers, scientists, and mathematicians, as Galileo, Bacon, Newton, Euler, Dalton, in fact, those who have dwelt upon the exact sciences, seem to have escaped many of the ills from which humanity suffers. Great students of natural history have also, as a rule, lived long and happy lives. Of 14 members of a noted historical society in England who died in 1870, 2 were over 90, 5 over 80, and 2 over 70. The occupation of the mind has a great influence upon the health of the body. There is no employment so dangerous and destructive to life, but plenty of human beings can be found to engage in it. Of all the instances that can be given of recklessness of life, there is none which exceeds that of the workmen employed in what is called dry pointing, the grinding of needles and of table forks. The fine steel dust which they breathe brings on a painful disease, of which they are almost sure to die before they are 40. Yet, not only are men tempted by high wages to engage in this employment, but they resist to the utmost all contrivances devised for diminishing the danger, through fear that such things would cause more workmen to offer themselves, and thus lower wages. Many physicians have investigated the effects of work in the numerous match factories in France upon the health of the employees, and all agree that rapid destruction of the teeth, decay or necrosis of the jawbone, bronchitis, and other diseases result. We will probably find more old men on farms than elsewhere. There are many reasons why farmers should live longer than the persons residing in cities, or than those engaged in other occupations. Aside from the purer air, the outdoor exercise, both conducive to a good appetite and sound sleep, which comparatively few in cities enjoy, they are free from the friction, harassing cares, anxieties, and the keen competition incident to city life. On the other hand, there are some great drawbacks and some enemies to longevity, even on the farm. Man does not live by bread alone. The mind is by far the greatest factor in maintaining the body in a healthy condition. The social life of the city, the great opportunities afforded the mind for feeding upon libraries and lectures, great sermons, and constant association with other minds, the great variety of amusements compensate largely for the loss of many of the advantages of farm life. In spite of the great temperance and immunity from things which corrode, whittle, and rasp away life in the cities, farmers in many places do not live so long as scientists and some other professional men. There is no doubt that aspiration and success tend to prolong life. Prosperity tends to longevity, if we do not wear life away or burn it out in the feverish pursuit of wealth. Thomas W. Higginson made a list of 30 of the most noted preachers of the last century and found that their average length of life was 69 years. Among miners in some sections, over 600 out of 1,000 die from consumption. In the prisons of Europe, where the fatal effects of bad air and filth are shown, over 61% of the deaths are from tuberculosis. In Bavarian monasteries, 50% of those who enter in good health die of consumption, and in the Prussian prisons it is almost the same. The effect of bad air, filth, and bad food is shown by the fact that the death rate among these classes between the ages of 20 and 40 is 5 times that of the general population of the same age. In New York City, over 1/5 of all the deaths of persons over 20 are from this cause. In large cities in Europe, the percentage is often still greater. Of 1,000 deaths from all causes, on the average, 103 farmers die of pulmonary tuberculosis, 108 fishermen, 121 gardeners, 122 farm labourers, 167 grocers, 209 tailors, 301 dry goods dealers, and 461 compositors, nearly one half. According to a long series of investigations by Doctors Benoisten and Lombard into occupations or trades where workers must inhale dust, it appears that mineral dust is the most detrimental to health, animal dust ranking next, and vegetable dust third. In choosing an occupation, cleanliness, pure air, sunlight, and freedom from corroding dust and poisonous gases are of the greatest importance. A man who would sell a year of his life for any amount of money would be considered insane, and yet we deliberately choose occupations and vocations which statistics and physicians tell us will be practically sure to cut off from 5 to 25, 30, or even 40 years of our life, and are seemingly perfectly indifferent to our fate. There is danger in a calling which requires great expenditure of vitality at long, irregular intervals. He who is not regularly or systematically employed incurs perpetual risk. Of the 32 all-round athletes in a New York club not long ago, said a physician, 3 are dead of consumption, 5 have to wear trusses, 4 or 5 are lop-shouldered, and 3 have catarrh and partial deafness. Dr. Patton, chief surgeon at the National Soldiers' Home at Dayton, Ohio, says that of the 5,000 soldiers in that institution, fully 80% are suffering from heart disease in one form or another, due to the forced physical exertions of the campaigns. Man's faculties and functions are so interrelated that whatever affects one affects all. Athletes who overdevelop the muscular system do so at the expense of the physical, mental, and moral well-being. It is a law of nature that the overdevelopment of any function or faculty, forcing or straining it, tends not only to ruin it, but also to cause injurious reactions on every other faculty and function. Vigorous thought must come from a fresh brain. We cannot expect nerve, snap, robustness and vigour, sprightliness and elasticity in the speech, in the book, or in the essay from an exhausted, jaded brain. The brain is one of the last organs of the body to reach maturity, at about the age of 28, and should never be overworked, especially in youth. The whole future of a man is often ruined by overstraining the brain in school. Brain workers cannot do good, effective work in one line many hours a day. When the brain is weary, when it begins to lose its elasticity and freshness, there will be the same lack of tonicity and strength in the brain product. Some men often do a vast amount of literary work in entirely different lines during their spare hours. Cessation of brain activity does not necessarily constitute brain rest, as most great thinkers know. The men who accomplish the most brain work, sooner or later, usually later, unfortunately, learn to give rest to one set of faculties and use another, as interest begins to flag and a sense of weariness comes. In this way they have been enabled to astonish the world by their mental achievements, which is very largely a matter of skill in exercising alternate sets of faculties, allowing rest to some while giving healthy exercise to others. The continual use of one set of faculties by an ambitious worker will soon bring him to grief. No set of brain cells can possibly set free more brain force in the combustion of thought than is stored up in them. The tired brain must have rest, or nervous exhaustion, brain fever, or even softening of the brain is liable to follow. As a rule, physical vigour is the condition of a great career. What would Gladstone have accomplished with a weak, puny physique? He addresses an audience at Corfu in Greek, and another at Florence in Italian. A little later he converses at ease with Bismarck in German, or talks fluent French in Paris, or piles up argument on argument in English for hours in Parliament. There are families that have clutched success and kept it through generations from the simple fact that a splendid physical organization handed down from one generation to another. All occupations that enervate, paralyze, or destroy body or soul should be avoided. Our manufacturing interests too often give little thought to the employed. The article to be made is generally the only object considered. They do not care if a man spends the whole of his life upon the head of a pin, or in making a screw in a watch factory. They take no notice of the occupations that ruin, or the phosphorus, the dust, the arsenic, that destroys the health, that shortens the lives of many workers, of the cramped condition of the body which creates deformity. The moment we compel those we employ to do work that demoralizes them or does not tend to elevate or lift them, we are forcing them into service worse than useless. If we induce painters to work in fading colors, or architects with rotten stone, or contractors to construct buildings with imperfect materials, we are forcing our Michelangelos to carve in snow. Ruskin says that the tendency of the age is to expend its genius in perishable art, as if it were a triumph, to burn its thoughts away in bonfires. Is the work you compel others to do useful to yourself and to society? If you employ a seamstress to make 4 or 5 or 6 beautiful flounces for your ball dress, flounces which will only clothe yourself, in which you will wear at only one ball, you are employing your money selfishly. Do not confuse covetousness with benevolence, nor cheat yourself into thinking that all the finery you can wear is so much put into the hungry mouths of those beneath you. It is what those who stand shivering on the street, forming a line to see you step out of your carriage, know it to be. These fine dresses do not mean that so much has been put into their mouths, but that so much has been taken out of their mouths. Select a clean, useful, honourable occupation. If there is any doubt on this point, abandon it at once, for familiarity with a bad business will make it seem good. Choose a business that has expansiveness in it. Some kinds of business not even a J. Pierpont Morgan could make respectable. Choose an occupation which will develop you, which will elevate you, which will give you a chance for self-improvement and promotion. You may not make quite so much money, but you will be more of a man, and manhood is above all riches, overtops all titles, and character is greater than any career. If possible, avoid occupations which compel you to work in a cramped position, or where you must work at night and on Sundays. Don't try to justify yourself on the ground that somebody must do this kind of work. Let somebody, not yourself, take the responsibility. Aside from the right and wrong of the thing, it is injurious to the health to work 7 days in the week, to work at night when nature intended you to sleep, or to sleep in the daytime when she intended you to work. Many a man has dwarfed his manhood, cramped his intellect, crushed his aspiration, blunted his finer sensibilities in some mean, narrow occupation just because there was money in it. Study yourself, says Longfellow, and most of all, note well wherein kind nature meant you to excel. Dr. Matthews says that to no other cause, perhaps, is failure in life so frequently to be traced as to a mistaken calling. We can often find out by hard knocks and repeated failures what we cannot do before what we can do. This negative process of eliminating the doubtful chances is often the only way of attaining to the positive conclusion. How many men have been made ridiculous for life by choosing law or medicine or theology simply because they are honourable professions? These men might have been respectable farmers or merchants, but are nobodies in such vocations. The very glory of the profession which they thought would make them shining lights simply renders more conspicuous their incapacity. Thousands of youths receive an education that fits them for a profession which they have not the means or inclination to follow, and that unfits them for the conditions of life to which they were born. Unsuccessful students with a smattering of everything are raised as much above their original condition as if they were successful. A large portion of Paris cabmen are unsuccessful students in theology and other professions, and also unfrocked priests. They are very bad cabmen. Tompkins forsakes his last and all for literary squabbles, styles himself poet, but his trade remains the same. He cobbles. Don't choose a profession or occupation because your father or uncle or brother is in it. Don't choose a business because you inherit it, or because parents or friends want you to follow it. Don't choose it because others have made fortunes in it. Don't choose it because it is considered the proper thing and a genteel business. The mania for a genteel occupation, for a soft job which eliminates drudgery, thorns, hardships, and all disagreeable things, and one which can be learned with very little effort, ruins many a youth. When we try to do that for which we are unfitted, we are not working along the line of our strength, but of our weakness. Our willpower and enthusiasm become demoralized. We do half work, botched work, lose confidence in ourselves, and conclude that we are dunces because we cannot accomplish what others do. The whole tone of life is demoralized and lowered because we are out of place. How it shortens the road to success to make a wise choice of one's occupation early, to be started on the road of a proper career while young, full of hope, while the animal spirits are high and enthusiasm is vigorous, to feel that every step we take, that every day's work we do, that every blow we strike helps to broaden, deepen, and enrich life. Those who fail are, as a rule, those who are out of their places. A man out of his place is but half a man. His very nature is perverted. He is working against his nature, rowing against the current. When his strength is exhausted, he will float down the stream. A man cannot succeed when his whole nature is entering its perpetual protest against his occupation. To succeed, his vocation must have the consent of all his faculties. They must be in harmony with his purpose. Has a young man a right to choose an occupation which will only call into play his lower and inferior qualities, as cunning, deceit, letting all his nobler qualities shrivel and die? Has he a right to select a vocation that will develop only the beast within him instead of the man, which will call out the bulldog qualities only, the qualities which overreach and grasp, the qualities which get and never give, which develop long-headedness only, while his higher self atrophies? The best way to choose an occupation is to ask yourself the question, what would my government do with me if it were to consider scientifically my qualifications and adaptations, and place me to the best possible advantage for all the people? The Norwegian precept is a good one. Give thyself wholly to thy fellow men. They will give thee back soon enough. We can do the most possible for ourselves when we are in a position where we can do the most possible for others. We are doing the most for ourselves and for others when we are in a position which calls into play, in the highest possible way, the greatest number of our best faculties. In other words, we are succeeding best for ourselves when we are succeeding best for others. The time will come when there will be institutions for determining the natural bent of the boy and girl, where men of large experience and close observation will study the natural inclination of the youth, help him to find where his greatest strength lies and how to use it to the best advantage. Even if we take for granted what is not true, that every youth will sooner or later discover the line of his greatest strength, so that he may get his living by his strong points rather than by his weak ones, the discovery is often made so late in life that great success is practically impossible. Such institutions would help boys and girls to start in their proper careers early in life, and an early choice shortens the way. Can anything be more important to human beings than a start in life in the right direction, where even small effort will count for more in the race than the greatest effort, and a life of drudgery in the wrong direction? A man is seldom unsuccessful, unhappy, or vicious when he is in his place. After once choosing your occupation, however, never look backward. Stick to it with all the tenacity you can muster. Let nothing tempt you or swerve you a hair's breadth from your aim, and you will win. Do not let the thorns which appear in every vocation, or temporary despondency or disappointment, shake your purpose. You will never succeed while smarting under the drudgery of your occupation, if you are constantly haunted with the idea that you could succeed better in something else. Great tenacity of purpose is the only thing that will carry you over the hard places which appear in every career to ultimate triumph. This determination or fixity of purpose has a great moral bearing upon our success, for it leads others to feel confidence in us, and this is everything. It gives credit and moral support in 1,000 ways. People always believe in a man with a fixed purpose, and will help him twice as quickly as one who is loosely or indifferently attached to his vocation, and liable at any time to make a change or to fail. Everybody knows that determined men are not likely to fail. They carry in their very pluck, grit, and determination the conviction and assurance of success. The world does not dictate what you shall do, but it does demand that you do something, and that you shall be a king in your line. There is no grander sight than that of a young man or woman in the right place, struggling with might and main to make the most of the stuff at command, determined that not a faculty or power shall run to waste. Not money, not position, but power is what we want, and character is greater than any occupation or profession. Do not, I beseech you, said Garfield, be content to enter on any business that does not require and compel constant intellectual growth. Choose an occupation that is refining and elevating, an occupation that you will be proud of, an occupation that will give you time for self-culture and self-elevation, an occupation that will enlarge and expand your manhood and make you a better citizen, a better man. Power and constant growth toward a higher life are the great end of human existence. Your calling should be the great school of life, the great man-developer, character builder, that which should broaden, deepen, and round out into symmetry, harmony, and beauty all the God-given faculties within you. But whatever you do, be greater than your calling. Let your manhood overtop your position, your wealth, your occupation, your title. A man must work hard and study hard to counteract the narrowing, hardening tendency of his occupation. Said Goldsmith, Burke, born for the universe, narrowed his mind, and to party gave up what was meant for mankind. Constant engagement in traffic and barter has no elevating influence, says Lindell. The endeavour to obtain the upper hand of those with whom we have to deal, to make good bargains, the higgling and scheming, and the 1,000 petty artifices, which in these days of stern competition are unscrupulously resorted to, tend to narrow the sphere and to lessen the strength of the intellect, and at the same time the delicacy of the moral sense. Choose upward. Study the men in the vocation you think of adopting. Does it elevate those who follow it? Are they broad, liberal, intelligent men? Or have they become mere appendages of their profession, living in a rut with no standing in the community and of no use to it? Don't think you will be the great exception and can enter a questionable vocation without becoming a creature of it. In spite of all your determination and willpower to the contrary, your occupation, from the very law of association and habit, will seize you as in a vise, will mould you, shape you, fashion you, and stamp its inevitable impress upon you. How frequently do we see bright, open-hearted, generous young men come out of college with high hopes and lofty aims, enter a doubtful vocation, and in a few years return to college commencement, so changed that they are scarcely recognized. The once broad, noble features have become contracted and narrowed. The man has become grasping, avaricious, stingy, mean, hard. Is it possible, we ask, that a few years could so change a magnanimous and generous youth? Go to the bottom if you would get to the top. Be master of your calling in all its details. Nothing is small which concerns your business. Thousands of men who have been failures in life have done drudgery enough in half a dozen different occupations to have enabled them to reach great success. If their efforts had all been expended in one direction, that mechanic is a failure who starts out to build an engine, but does not quite accomplish it, and shifts into some other occupation where perhaps he will almost succeed, but stops just short of the point of proficiency in his acquisition, and so fails again. The world is full of people who are almost a success. They stop just this side of success. Their courage oozes out just before they become expert. How many of us have acquisitions which remain permanently unavailable because not carried quite to the point of skill? How many people almost know a language or two which they can neither write nor speak, a science or two whose elements they have not quite acquired, an art or two partially mastered, but which they cannot practice with satisfaction or profit, the habit of desultoriness, which has been acquired by allowing yourself to abandon a half-finished work, more than balances any little skill gained in one vocation which might possibly be of use later. Beware of that frequently fatal gift, versatility. Many a person misses being a great man by splitting into two middling ones. Universality is the ignis fatuus, which has deluded to ruin many a promising mind. In attempting to gain a knowledge of 100 subjects, it has mastered none. The jack of all trades, says one of the foremost manufacturers of this country, had a chance in my generation. In this he has none. The measure of a man's learning will be the amount of his voluntary ignorance, said Thoreau. If we go into a factory where the mariner's compass is made, we can see the needles before they are magnetized. They will point in any direction. But when they have been applied to the magnet and received its peculiar power, from that moment they point to the north and are true to the pole ever after. So man never points steadily in any direction until he has been polarized by a great master purpose. Give your life, your energy, your enthusiasm, all to the highest work of which you are capable. Canon Farrar said, "There is only one real failure in life possible, and that is not to be true to the best one knows." What must I do to be forever known? Thy duty ever. Who does the best his circumstance allows, does well, acts nobly, angels could do no more. Young. Whoever can make 2 ears of corn, 2 blades of grass to grow upon a spot of ground where only one grew before, says Swift, would deserve better of mankind and do more essential service to his country than the whole race of politicians put together. End of chapter 11. Choosing a Vocation.